Minci's mentor is also Melissa Sturgeapple, and her project is looking at the role of family instability, household chaos, and temperament in children's problem behaviors. All right, go ahead.
All right, thank you. So I'll just be starting off talking about some background of the study. So Bronfenbrenner has proposed in the bioecological model the proximal processes, which have been regarded as the engines of development. So it is theorized to play a significant role in shaping development. And it is defined as the progressively more complex interaction between the developing persons, the objects, the symbols, and the people in the immediate external environment. So for example, it could be the interaction between a child, the parents, and the toys and video games in a family context. And according to Bronfenbrenner and Morris, development is facilitated by regular and consistent proximal processes. And there could be disruptions in the proximal processes, which could be further associated with various problems in development. And here I focused on this one source of disruption, which is the unpredictability within the family context. So previous studies have offered various indicators of it, and here I focused on two of them, and they are household chaos and family instability. So household chaos has been demonstrated by previous studies to adversely shape development, and it is defined as the lack of routine, organization, or high level of noises in a child-rearing environment. So previous studies have offered inconsistent evidence on a direct link between household chaos and children's behavioral problems. So some studies revealed null findings and other studies revealed a weaker or a stronger link. Moving on to the second indicator. So family instability is defined as the frequent transitions within the family context. So for example, it could be the changes in caregivers' relationship status, residential moves, and so on. So some previous studies have offered evidence for a direct link between family instability and children's problematic behaviors. However, some other studies revealed null findings. So given the inconsistent evidence on a direct link between household chaos or family instability and children's behavioral problems, it suggests that there might be potential moderators in this process. Guided by diathesis stress and differential susceptibility theories, here my study focused on the person by environment interaction. So here, this graph, it describes the pattern of diathesis stress model. And we can see that those individuals who are more vulnerable, they show a more poor development under a more negative environment. And in contrast, we have the model for differential susceptibility. And here, we can see that those individuals who are more plastic or more malleable, they not only show a more poor development under a more negative environment, but also seem to show a better development under a more positive environment. So comparing these two models together, we can see that they both emphasize on those individuals who are more vulnerable or more plastic. They seem to develop more poorly under more adversity. However, only differential susceptibility model emphasizes that the same individuals, they also seem to benefit more from a more positive environment. So specifically here in my study, I used temperament difficulty as a moderator. And of all the ways indicated by previous studies to characterize it, here I borrowed the idea from Chloe Zambelski and also Rosa et al. To characterize temperament difficulty as a collection of traits that show higher activity and low regulation. So some examples for higher activity were negative emotionality and anger frustration. And the example for low regulation was low inhibition. So some previous studies offered evidence for temperament difficulty as a moderator of the association between family risks and children's problematic functionings. So this study by Balsig and Ploys They show that the association between a lower quality of childcare and greater behavioral problems was only significant for children with greater temperament difficulty. So taking everything together, the present longitudinal and model informant study aim to examine the two sources of environmental unpredictability. In addition, I also separately tested the moderating effect of temperament difficulty on the association between household chaos or family instability and children's externalizing and internalizing problems. In addition, I tested the pattern of any detected interaction to see if it's more consistent with diathesis stress or differential susceptibility. And last but not least, I examined how household chaos and family instability make function together. Moving on to methods. The participants for 235 families with target children between the age of 2 to 4 at the first wave, and they were followed for 3 annual waves, but here I focused on only the first 2. So household chaos was measured by mother-reported confusion, hubbub, and order scale. Some example item here was there was often a fuss going on at our home, and I obtained the sum of each item with a greater sum reflecting greater level of chaos. So family instability was measured by mother-reported family instability questionnaire, and it was asking the frequency of, for example, the caregiver's changes or residential change. And again, a greater sum indicated a greater level of instability. And in addition, I performed a log transformation to adjust for the right skewness of the data. And child temperament difficulty was measured by mother-reported child behavior questionnaire short form. And an example item here was, my child has temper tantrums when they do not get what they want. And here again, a greater sum indicated a greater level of temperament difficulty. Last but not least, we have children's externalizing and internalizing problems. And they were measured by experimenters reported the MacArthur Health Behavior Questionnaire. And for example, it was asking items like, my child gets into fights, or my child is unhappy, sad, or depressed. And here, a greater sum indicated greater problems. Moving on to data analysis. So in my study, I used latent difference scores model to characterize the changes in children's externalizing and internalizing problems from wave 1 to wave 2. I standardized family instability, household chaos, and temperament difficulty, and then created the interaction terms below. And these were all used to predict the latent changes in children's externalizing and internalizing problems. And moving on to the results. Okay, for household chaos, we can see in this graph that household chaos had a significant main effect on children's changes in externalizing problems, where a greater level of chaos was associated with greater increases in externalizing problems. However, there was not a significant effect of temperament difficulty or the interaction between household chaos and temperament difficulty. And for internalizing problems, I had no findings. Moving on to family instability, here we can see in this graph that there was not a significant main effect of family instability or temperament difficulty. However, for their interaction, it did have a significant effect on the changes in externalizing problems. And again, for internalizing problems, I had no findings. So in order to further probe the interaction pattern, I conducted the simple slope analysis. So here in this graph, we can see that on the x-axis, we have family instability with the positive side on the right, indicating a greater level of instability and therefore more adversity. And on the y-axis, we have the latent changes in externalizing problems with a positive side on top, indicating greater problems. So in the graph, we can see the solid line representing children with greater temperament difficulty. And for these children, the association between family instability and the changes in externalizing problems turned out to be significant, where a greater level of instability was associated with greater increase in externalizing problems. And however, for those children who have lower temperament difficulty indicated by the dotted line, for these children, the association was not significant. And before I move on to see which model is this pattern more consistent with, here is a little reminder of what these two models look like. So if we compare these two models, we can see that only the one for differential susceptibility model emphasizes that these two group of people, they also differ in the positive context. So going back to my results, here I conducted the regions of significance test on X, and the results show that the association between temperament difficulty and the changes in externalizing problems turned out to be significant when X was above 0.93, which is indicated in the gray area, and also when X was below -1.5, and that is actually outside the range of family instability. So to summarize the results together, we can see that these two groups of children, they only significantly differed in their changes in externalizing problems when the level of family instability was greater. So therefore, when there's more adversity in the family context. And that is more consistent with the thesis stress pattern. So at the end, in order to test the robustness of my results, I put these two predictors in the same model. And here in the graph, we can see that household chaos again had a significant main effect on the changes in externalizing problems from wave 1 to wave 2 in the same directions as before. And for the interaction between family instability and temperament difficulty, it again had a significant effect in the same directions as before, where the association was only significant for children with greater temperament difficulty. So in conclusion, my study established a direct effect of household chaos on children's changes in externalizing problems. In addition, there was a significant effect of the interaction between temperament difficulty and family instability on the changes in externalizing problems. And this pattern seems to be more consistent with diathesis stress, where only children with greater temperament difficulty showed more increases in externalizing problems on a greater family instability. And at the end, there was an the interactive effect of family instability and child temperament difficulty remains significant above and beyond the direct effect of household chaos. All right, at the very end, I just want to say thank you to my mentor and co-mentor, Dr. Sturgeon and Dr. Lee, my second reader, Dr. Davis, and my team at the Rochester Center for Research on Children and Families and the Whole Family Center. For all their support and guidance that make my study even possible. Thank you for listening.